Hi everyone, this is Dr. Compton again for part 2 of the search process and search strategies lesson. Last week we discussed what you have to do to prepare yourself for searching during the search process. We covered how learning search strategies contributes significantly to information literacy, or the ability to find, access, understand, and use information, and it reinforces good digital citizenship, which is just belonging to the global online community where there are laws and expectations for behavior. And this improves not just your academic success, but also your life in general when you learn these techniques. So I always want to emphasize that. We went over the role of the library when you're searching for information and how to organize information you collect, and we closed with an activity using these skills. So this week we will cover actual search techniques and strategies to make your searches more effective. The three main topics we address are information sources, things to look for in websites, identifying keywords, and actually a fourth, and the search strategies and techniques. Is that? No, that is three. Sorry. So first, what do you think would be good sources of information? Where do you think you would find them? Well, let's start off with blogs. Blogs are pretty much to be avoided as sources for your academic work, and to be taken with a grain of salt if you're looking at them for personal interest, for obvious reasons. I mean, anybody can create a blog, anybody can put information out there. However, if it's a blog by an expert like Dr. Fauci, and he's talking about communicable diseases, that's a pretty safe bet since he is an expert on it. If he's talking about, say, basket weaving, as far as I know, he's not an expert at that. So you have to take that into consideration. Online magazines and journals, those for the most part aren't known to be high when it comes to credibility, unless you're talking about something like Scientific American or National Geographic. But otherwise, online magazines, journals aren't really good sources of information, unless you're talking about academic journals that are scholarly, that have citations and are peer reviewed, and experts are looking at it and making sure that the information is correct. As far as online news sources go, there was a time when mainstream news was fairly trusted, but with the 24-hour news cycle channels and the internet, people have just become more polarized. There's more information out there, but we tend to go to where the people are saying things that we want to hear. And there's all this time in the 24-hour news cycle to fill up. You can't just give out facts for 24 hours. Nobody's going to sit and watch that. So there are a lot of people just giving opinions. And sometimes it's hard to distinguish the news from opinions, and sometimes those opinions slip into the news, especially when you're talking about left-leaning or right-leaning, politically left or right-leaning news sources like CNN, Fox, MSNBC. So be very careful with those. So what should you be looking for when you are considering a website as a source? Well, as you are reading it, look for whether or not they take into account different perspectives instead of saying, I'm right because, they're wrong because. That's bias. Anything that's overly one-sided, that is considered bias, and that's something you want to avoid. If you see bias, if you see an author or a speaker only trashing one side and only promoting another side, then that is not a credible source. Check to see if they're verifying evidence rather than just making assertions or just stating something. Are they backing it up with statements by experts? Are they backing it up with statistics or just facts? If they're just stating it and not backing it up, then that is not a credible source of information. Do they use multiple sources? If they don't mention sources, then I would not consider that a credible source. If they're only using one source, that's not very good either, because you want to have multiple perspectives taken into account, disagreeing perspectives, so that you can kind of weigh the pros and cons of each side. And then there are domain names, like what comes at the end of a URL, a web address, like .com, .org, .gov, .edu. There are a lot of them, but I'll just cover those four. .com stands for commercial. So that's what the majority of websites have, are .coms. So they're a mixed bag. It's like what I said about blogs. Like, anybody can put anything out there if they create a website. So some of it's good, some of it's bad. Always consider a .com suspect, and if you're going to use it, do your research and verify it to see if the information is correct. .orgs, kind of a mixed bag. I feel like they're a bit safer than .coms, because there's .org means it's an organization, but there are organizations for every agenda out there, and just the word agenda should raise a red flag. So they could have a good agenda, and they could be putting out good information that is peer-reviewed and backed up by facts, verified by evidence, but they could be an organization that just puts out really bad information. .govs, you can feel pretty safe about. Some people might say that's not the case if they don't trust the government, but at least if it's a governmental page, if it's a page by, put out by the state of Indiana or by the United States, the White House, at least there are people proofreading it and checking for factual errors and things like that, hopefully. And then .edu stands for education. You can feel pretty much 100% safe with those, because educational institutions, when they put out information, there are experts there that read what multiple people look at it, make sure the information is correct. So .edus you can feel pretty safe about. Don't just trust the first few links that come up on a Google search. Scroll a few pages, dig a little bit more deeply. Beyond that, also refine your searches. Change the words around, and I'll talk about that when we get to the search strategies. Now, Google is amazing, but there are ways that websites can manipulate their code to get them to come to the top, and Google kind of knows what you're searching for and will bring up to the top of your searches the stuff that you're most interested in. So just be aware of that. And if you're looking at sources and see disagreements, determine which ones are biased and which ones aren't. Look for ones that are not sourced or do have sources. And we already talked about those two. And whether they lack authority or have authority. A lot of times, famous people or people that are experts in one area will come on and talk about something that is not in their area of expertise, and people take it to be true because they trust them. Now, when you are doing a search, let's say you have a research question and you want to do a search to find information on it. You could type in the whole question, but it's better to just pick keywords out of it. Let's say your research question is, how does social media influence the communication of today's college students? Which of these terms, what words would you leave out when you do a search here? Well, the keywords you're looking for, I would say how and does, probably not that useful. The, probably not that useful. Of, probably not that useful. Today's, it's important that we indicate the time period, but starting out you might want to just leave that out. So I would say your keywords would be social media, influence, communication, college students. You're probably going to get better results if you put in only the keywords that you need, rather than just how does such and such happen when you do such and such. The more unnecessary words, the more results you're going to get, and the less effective the search is going to be. Also, try using synonyms, rephrasing the questions, and some of the search techniques that I'll show you in a bit. So, social media, I could switch that out with one of the platforms of social media, or put in several social media sites. So instead of social media, I could put in Facebook or Twitter. So now let's look at some search techniques. One of the problems I've noticed when I do research and when students do research, or the biggest problem I see at the beginning, is biting off more than you can chew. We have way too broad of a topic, and a lot of times we don't find that out until we start researching it. Occasionally I've had students, and I have in the past when I was doing research, been too narrow, so narrow that we can't find sources that address specifically what we're talking about. But if you're doing something on the divorce rate of transgender volleyball coaches, I doubt there's research out there on that. So you would have to be very creative in finding sources and piecing them together in such a way that addresses that issue, or you would have to do original research and go out and do interviews and collect statistics and things like that. So there are search strategies that can broaden your search so that you find more information and sources, and there are techniques for narrowing down what you find. Most of this is for the purpose of narrowing it down, because when you do a Google search, you get billions of results. That's not useful, because you can't. That's an ocean of information. That's information overload. So let's look at some of them. Let's say that you want to find information on communication between college students. So we'll take out some of that search from the research question. And most of the stuff we're finding here looks relevant, but look, we've got how to communicate with college students right here. That wasn't what we were looking for. So let's say we get a bunch of stuff like that just has communication in it, or has college in it, or has students in it. Because if we just put in these search terms like this, it's going to pull up websites that have either just one or a portion or all of these search terms in whatever order they may be on the site. So you may get something that has nothing to do with the communication of college students. What I would do here is put quotation marks around college students, and that will give me an exact phrase result. So let's say I just typed in college students. Without these quotation marks, it would be like I just said it would be. You would get results that have either college or students, or both, and they could be anywhere on the web page and not connected to each other. But if I put quotation marks around college students, I'm only going to get results that have the exact phrase in this order, college students. So let's do that search. And you can see all of my results. College students bring COVID? Thanksgiving will soon empty campuses. Will students bring home coronavirus? I'm sure college students is in there somewhere. Stress in college students, U.S. college students. So you can see that narrows your results down. We've got 88 million results. Let's get rid of the quotation marks and see how many results we get. Now we have 1,970,000,000 results. So you can see that is a huge difference. We still have to deal with 88 million results though. So it's a process, and you keep narrowing it down. So let's say you get a bunch of results. You do a search, you get a bunch of results, and most of the results that you get are on some topic that you're not looking for, but you still need to do this to search for this topic. So what do you do with your search terms to get rid of the results that you don't want? Let's say I'm looking for a book that has the same title as a movie, and all I'm getting are results for that movie. So the example I'm thinking of is Parallax View. So I'm looking for information on a book called The Parallax View. And let's see, I got one on the thriller film from 1974. We got IMDb movies, Parallax View 1974, clips from Parallax View, movie review. All of this are movies. I want the book. So let me get rid of anything dealing with movies. How would I do that? How would I get rid of results that have the word movie in them? Well, this is a search technique. You just put like quotation marks. So you put in a minus sign and then whatever word that you want excluded from your search results. So I'm going to put in movie. So I'm going to get results for Parallax View for websites that don't have the word movie in them, or at least web pages. And there we go. Parallax View, MIT Press. That means it's a book. And I'm still getting stuff talking about a trailer, cinematique. That's dealing with cinema, with film. So I want to narrow it. I want to keep narrowing it down because I seem to be still getting stuff about movies. So again, synonyms, alternate phrasing, So I'm going to put in not movie and not film. And I'm getting almost all stuff on the books. So this is the one I'm looking for, by Slavoj Žižek, the philosopher. So that's pretty simple. And once you learn these, this changes your life. Having these search techniques, I can find things pretty quickly. And all of us know how to use Google, but if we know these techniques, then it really helps out. So we're talking about getting rid of a word. What if we want to make sure a word is in there? So I'm going to do the same search here, parallax view, but I want to make sure the word book is in there. So before we used the minus sign, what do you think we would use now? A plus sign. So let's do plus book. Parallax view plus book. And we got parallax view book by Slavoj Žižek. And that seemed to be more effective than the minus sign. So that's good. Shows you it works, right? Google also provides related searches at the bottom of the page. So that is useful as well. You can use that to expand on or kind of send you in a different direction, give you some more ideas about what you're looking for, give you a new kind of phrase search to alter the results that you get. Another technique would be to do something called snowballing, and that is simply looking at the sources of your source. This is a great way to save time and to gather as much useful information, relevant information as you can. And teachers tell you not to use Google or Wikipedia for sources, and that's true. You shouldn't use them as sources, but they're still useful. They're useful in kind of brainstorming what topic you want or getting ideas about the topic you want. But it's not a good idea to use Wikipedia as your source, like putting it in your works site and then citing it. But one thing that is useful about Wikipedia, and as we scroll down to the bottom, we see their sources. Snowballing would be following these sources, seeing what's in them. So from Wikipedia, you could go to one of these sources and check it out, verify the information that's there, evaluate it. Is it biased? Does it use multiple sources? Does it lack authority? All of those things I talked about at the beginning. That's all I had to cover today. Once again, I hope you found this useful. We went over how all of this contributes significantly to your information literacy and digital citizenship. And this week we addressed information sources, how to evaluate them, look for bias, look for lack of authority. Are they just making assertions, or are they backing things up with facts and evidence? We talked about sources, which ones that are more likely to be useful than others. We talked about domain names, .com, .org, .gov, which ones are probably more reliable than others. And then we addressed we addressed what keywords to use and search strategies. So thank you for listening to this. This is Dr. Compton signing off. Have a good day.